Episode 19, Solo, a Star Wars movie review. Welcome to the Visionary Variety Podcast, where we cover cool stuff like photo, video, film, books, and technology. So, switch on your brain and enjoy the show. Welcome back, guys, to the Visionary Variety Podcast. We're honored to have you listening to us once again. So this week is going to be awesome. We are reviewing Solo, a Star Wars story, the movie. It's kind of really long-winded there. But this movie was amazing. You guys agree?
Yes, definitely.
Totally. It's totally the Star Wars Western.
Yeah, it is. It really blew my mind in a lot of ways. And I am thankful to say I went in without any expectations, and I was very pleasantly surprised. But more on that later. With us today on the show are myself, of course, Daniel Grove, the man who inspired Chuck Norris's beard. We've also got Nate Gunn, the videographer who turned down the royal wedding gig because he had cute cat videos to watch on YouTube. And our special guest today, first time on the podcast, is my friend Abi Leon, the man who's made it his life mission to watch every movie ever made.
Hey, what's up? That's me.
So, Abi, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? What do you do, where you live, and what you're into?
I'm the production director for Tree of Life Church. So basically what that means is that I put together all the video elements, all the media elements for church services and for any outside events that need to happen, like community service events or, outreaches and things like that. I also do script writing on the side. I act on the side and just involved in our community politics, all that stuff, that normal dads do nowadays, I guess. That's pretty much it. Just living life, doing video.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Video junkie, just like all of us. And also you're a big cinemaphile, right? Big movie fan, big movie watcher.
Yes, I love movies. I can be found watching. I'm actually watching a movie while we're doing this podcast. So,
hey.
Another set of headphones in, watching something on the side. So, I love movies. That's actually what I have my degree in. I have a degree in film. And so, so just really,
well, you're on the right podcast.
There you go. Yeah.
I'm a movie aholic. I love the art of movie. I love story, and movie I feel is such a great avenue for a story. And it's kind of it's like a fast, short avenue for stories,
Yeah.
Quicker than a book, which I do love, but that's why I love movies. And of course I'm a visual artist, so movies are just like, wow, this is like moving photography for me. Mm-hmm. So.
Yep.
Awesome. Very cool. And unfortunately, we do not have Angela with us today. She is currently Kraken racing with the Gods of the Olympiad. So she's a little busy right now, but she'll be back with us soon. And we do have some very cool episodes coming up with her about video games because, that's one subject we haven't really touched on lately is how much we love video games and how much we grew up with them. So I believe the next 2 or 3 podcasts will be covering that, and that is going to be super cool. All right. Well, let's get on with today's episode. We are talking about Solo, a Star Wars story, the movie. Just to clarify. And so you guys, what did you guys come into the movie theater with in your head as far as expectations or spoilers, or what were you looking for?
Please don't mess this up, and please be better than all the reviews and everything that everybody's saying. Like, everybody was saying that this was going to be
us.
Yeah, no, this was going to be. Everybody was saying this is going to be the 3rd worst Star Wars movie, and I was like, oh man, that's not cool, because I had just bought the tickets and then read the review. So I was like, well, here we go. And I was surprised walking out of the theater how much I enjoyed the movie. And I've actually seen the movie twice, and I cannot wait to probably see it again or own the movie on DVD.
Yeah, for me, I was the same way. I watch a lot of reviews online about film, and so it was really hard to skip over the reviews because this is a week out, right? A week out from the opening. So there's already, dozens of people reviewing. So it just was present in my mind. So I was like, man, I got to go see this. Because I want to watch these videos and see what everybody has to say. So I try to come in watching the movie with a clean slate. So I saw titles. There was one spoiler that kind of caught my eye in the title. And I was like, why'd you do that? You're not supposed to do that as a reviewer. You're not supposed to put spoilers in the titles.
Jerk.
Yeah, and so aside from that, I came in clean. I was really excited to see it. I don't really ascribe to everybody's negative reviews of anything because in the end, somebody spent 2 or 3 years of their life putting that together. So just for that fact, I'll respect every movie and try not to knock it down, except Black Cat. That was a horrible movie. But
except for that one.
Yeah, that's the only one. But aside from that one, I respect everything. So I came in with a clean slate, trying to enjoy a good story. And yeah, I was like Nate, I was pleasantly surprised. I was pleasantly surprised at how good I felt after that movie. Real good. I personally liked it better than Rogue One. I don't know if that's heresy for some Star Wars people, but I liked it better. Daniel and I had talked about it offline about how I really appreciated the origin nods and all that stuff that was included in this movie. So, yeah.
Well, before I get back to Star Wars, you're talking about movie reviews, and you're a big movie guy. So, have you seen the movie The Room?
Yes.
You have seen it?
Yes.
We haven't, and we should do a movie review of that one because it's so bad.
Yeah, it's
that's held as one of the worst movies ever made, I think. Right, modern movies.
Is it?
Just put it out there.
Is it? Because sometimes it's one of those things. It's like it's so bad that it had to have been planned to be bad.
You want to think that. You hope that.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. It's either the worst movie ever or the most genius artistic movie ever, and it's one or the other, and there's arguments to be said for both.
You'll never know.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I luckily went into this movie totally. I had one thing I knew about the movie was that the Kessel Run would happen, and that's not really a spoiler. That's got to happen, obviously. If the Kessel Run did not happen in this movie, there would have been so many upset fans. So I read somewhere just in passing, Kessel Run, this, that. I'm like, oh, this is cool. I wasn't upset. I was like, okay, this is great. I'm looking forward to seeing the Kessel Run, which I've read about in the book. Not canon, but it happened already. So I was excited about that. Other than that, I saw the trailers. I think there's 2 or 3 of them, and that was it. I was super pumped about seeing where they would go. I love origin stories. I love that Star Wars connects all these dots with the little, as I call them, breadcrumbs. They're just kind of dropped randomly, but then someone else will pick them up and connect the dots. I like that. It can be overdone. I feel like episode 7 was just too much callbacks. Or the way that they did the callbacks, I didn't like.
Okay.
And this movie was full of callbacks. There was way more than episode 7, but just the way they worked into the story made sense, and they were more subtle. Sometimes they were literally just a visual in the background or a one-liner that is great and a monologue or a dialogue, but it's connecting to somewhere else later in the movie or later in the Star Wars universe. So I don't know. It's just callbacks were good. Going in with a clean slate, I was very happy that I did that, and I walked out of the movie thinking this might be my favorite Star Wars movie, which is a big deal. Now, it's hard to compare them to the old movies because they're totally different, and of course, production quality, and it's been a while since I've watched the old movies too. But man, this one just really gave me a good feeling. I'm very impressed how it turned out. Nate and I were very worried. You can read it, you can listen to it in our earlier podcast where we were saying basically it was March, and there was not even a trailer yet, and it was coming out in May. I'm like, guys, what's going on here? Is this going to be a bomb? And when the news came out that the original directors had been fired, creative differences or whatever, that really made us worried. We're like, oh my gosh, what has happened? What is going to happen? We don't know. But wow, we were surprised. So overall, for star ratings, I give it, I'm going to give it a 5. You guys, I hope y'all don't be influenced by my rating, but what do you guys rate this movie as?
5 out of what? 7? No.
5 out of 5.
Yeah, that's tough.
I'm gonna do the Star Search, where they do quarter stars. I'd give it 4.25 stars.
Okay, 4.25.
4.25 stars.
I'll give it a solid 4.9.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wanted that one dot more. It's because I wanted the movie to be a little bit longer, but
I felt it was pretty long.
Yeah, it was. I think it was over 2 hours, wasn't it?
Yeah. I don't know. I was just I was enjoying it. So
yeah, me too. Yeah, you can never have enough of a Star Wars movie. If a 5-hour Star Wars movie came out, I would find a way to watch it.
Yeah. So you guys scored it pretty high, 5 and 4.9. That's, because to me 5 is perfect, and to me there was only one perfect movie, and that was The Passion of the Christ. No, I'm just kidding. That was no, I'm just kidding.
Oversaved.
Right, oversaved. No, like The Matrix. That's my quintessential that's my movie. So
cool.
Perfect score. I mean, perfect score is 5 and a 4.9. Why do you rate that?
I like.
Well, I may change my mind later.
Okay.
Honestly, like I gave episode 8 like a really higher rating, maybe not a 5, maybe like a 4.5 or 4. But then as I thought about the plot issues more, I was like, yeah, it's kind of going down. So this may happen.
Okay.
I can't say it won't, but like the character development was good. The acting was great. Although I have a note about Qi'ra's performance and also Han not being very Han-y. We'll talk about that later. But the acting itself was good. The sets and visuals were incredible. The story was great and surprising. So kind of like all the different like points of a movie, like I felt were really high.
Okay.
So right now it's a 5.
Yeah.
But like I said, I'm okay with changing it maybe once I think about it more.
I think I give it a high rating because I just saw it, so all the excitement. But I'm sure as time goes on, I'll be like, no. Or if they do a sequel, which we don't know, I don't know. But a lot of the character building, I'm a huge fan of Han and Chewie. So maybe that's why I give it a high. I've always enjoyed those two characters. Like I have a lot of friends that have like Wookiee suits.
Mostly Chewie.
But I'm sure, like I said, over time, it might die down and it might just become which of the Star Wars movie does this categorize? Like number 1, number 2, number 3 on favorite?
Yeah, it's hard to say. Like, it's kind of funny how people have this obsession with ranking the Star Wars movies. You know, you notice that? That in the Marvel movies, it's like you have to rate them in number system. I'm like, I don't know, I can't. It's too hard.
Yeah.
I don't think about that unless I've watched them all in like one day and they're fresh in my brain and I can analyze them all evenly. It's really hard for me to number movies.
Yeah, that's really hard. I look at them as like a whole.
Yeah.
You know, so like The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings, I look at that whole thing as a story because that's what it is.
Okay.
It's a whole thing. So I can't say Lord of the Rings 1 or 2 or 3 is better than each other. It's just one whole movie. So this one is separate from the
this is a good
episodes.
standalone.
Yeah, it's a standalone, but it's
Yeah, I agree. It definitely beats out Rogue One, even though as much as I enjoyed Rogue One.
It was a great movie, great war movie. So before we get into spoilers, some quick little things I wanted to mention that are not spoilers was when I watched the trailer, I was wondering, who is this little kid in the car with Han? It was qi'ra. Oh, man, it was so funny. Even until last night after the movie, I was like, wait a second. They never showed the clip with the boy in the car. And I went and watched the trailer. I'm like, oh my God, that's qi'ra.
That's hilarious.
Because she's kind of sunken down and she's very youthful, and it was a really fast clip.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I thought it was a little young boy. You remember that, Nate? You remember me saying that?
Yeah, you're like, who is the kid in the car? Did
It's
he
a little
smuggle
Why
a
is he
kid?
stealing? Yeah. Is this a human trafficking story? Like at very
I can
first,
see
I was
that.
like, oh, I thought it was young Han and like his dad, because it just didn't
that's
strike me as
funny.
Han at first. I'm like, oh, this is cool, like little Han. Like, this is fun. And then I'm like, oh, that's old Han and a boy. And now it's like, oh, it's old Han and his girlfriend.
Oh wow.
I'm an idiot. Wow, was I off?
It kept spinning out of control and got to the point of we were making assumptions than having facts.
So I'm sorry. You're a beautiful actress who played qi'ra, and Daenerys, you don't look like a little boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Hashtag
so that was funny. I feel like there was a scene in the trailers that that wasn't included, and it was when they were flying around the tentacles. Maybe it was there, but I don't know. There was a lot of fast cuts with that tentacle scene with a monster.
Yeah, there was a couple scenes in there that I saw with the tentacles.
So maybe it was there. I don't know. And that line where he says, "I thought we were in trouble there for a second. We're fine. We're fine." Was that in the movie?
Man, that really was. Now that I think about it, it really was a fast-paced.
There's so many things.
Yeah,
like I can't trust my own memory anymore. What was happening? What was or wasn't in there?
Night.
Yeah, right. Oh, how old? I'm getting old.
Yeah, but they started doing that more and more, where the trailers have something like a Easter egg, basically, or a line that catches everybody's attention, and then the movie doesn't have it. I'm like, wait, what?
See, that's what I'm anticipating. Now, maybe I'm just jumping the gun because of Marvel with Infinity War, but I don't know. Do you guys think there's any trailer scenes that didn't make it?
And I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch the trailer.
Right,
now.
I'd have to rewatch it.
Yeah.
But I'm sure they do, because everybody, that's a trend in movie trailers.
Yeah.
It's like they're hooking you. It's would that be considered bait and switch? I don't know.
It kind of is.
Yeah, right.
Well, I mean, if the switch is still good, it's not like a mean bait and switch, but it is a marketing tactic that they're using now. That's because visual companies are I guess they're more affordable or whatever. They just love that appeal of like, ooh, all the Avengers running together. Oh, they're not really running together, and Hulk doesn't ever Hulk out again. You know, that kind of thing. Yeah. So now with all these big blockbusters, I'm just expecting like fake clips in a trailer, and I'm looking for them. I'm searching for them now.
Yeah.
So anyway, moving on. So at this point, from henceforth, you are therefore warned there shall be spoilers. All right, guys, let's talk about characters in the movie. This is a great character story. Lots of arcs, lots of, obviously it's an origin story and lots of new characters. So, I mean, the only old characters are really just like Chewie, Han, and Lando that I can think of off the top of my head. But I love origin stories because they get to tell you how did you get the character that you already love, and how did they get to that point. So, what did you guys think about Han's name, his last name? Isn't that weird?
I did not see that one coming. I'd be completely honest with you. And then he was like, well, who are your people? And he's like, I have no people. I was like, oh, that's how they named him to be Solo. I was like, what? That was like mind blowing. The first time I saw it. Now, the second time I saw it coming. But the first time I was just like, what? That's insane. Like, I think I was the only one freaking out in the movie theater. So they probably thought something was wrong with me. But I was
like, what's going on with that guy over there? Does he need an EpiPen or something?
I mean, like when I was little, like I was like, what does Solo mean? Like, is he a solo writer? And those are the questions I used to have. And then they basically answered it up front. I was like, mind blown. And like, thank you for answering my questions after this.
It could have been dangerous. I think it could have been really cliche, but like you said, the way they pulled it off with him saying, it was really, really nice. Like Han Solo, he's by himself. Okay, they could have done something real cheesy where he's like, oh, I'm just, have him do some
solo.
Yeah, I run solo, whatever. But the way they did it, the way they did it with Han and qi'ra just trying to leave, the way that was cool. That was really well done.
There were so many scenes that I was on the edge of my seat.
Yeah, I actually literally was on the edge of my seat.
I saw you.
I'm like, oh man, no, what is that? Oh,
I need a seatbelt.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Han was cool. I know he didn't say Solo. It wasn't his idea. Correct. It was the officers.
Yeah.
So that was
Did he
nice
ever say his last name, like Solo, in the movie?
I don't remember.
So to the actual person, he's just Han. Now, that guy at the beginning just named him Solo.
Right.
Huh.
It sticks later, I guess. And that's kind of a jerk move towards his dad. Like, he has a last name. Everyone in Star Wars, even freaking aliens, have last names. So he has a last name. We don't know what it is, and his dad just like got it with sick burn. It's like, I don't care about my family or my last name.
Well, I mean, because he said it towards the middle of the movie. He's like, yeah, I've been in one of these ships before. My dad used to work on it before he got laid off. And then I was like, well, then you have like what you just said. I was like, I thought the same thing. I was like, well, then you have a last name.
So that was a cool little fix too. What could be considered in the big picture thing a cheesy character name choice. He's the Solo guy. He doesn't need nobody, and his last name's Solo. That's kind of cheesy when you think about it, but they fixed it. So that was a cool fix. And this movie is full of fixes, I think. Not that Star Wars is like some broken franchise, but there are just little gimmicks and things from the 70s and 80s that are still there that they really like fixed and kind of patched together, which is cool. So speaking of 80s and past stories, there's a lot of things in this movie that have been taken from the books that are not canon, which is interesting. I love when I see that happening because I love the books. I love the what are called now Star Wars Legends and used to be called Expanded Universe books. And one of those ideas is Han joining the Empire. In the books, Han joined the Empire and he worked, I don't know how faithfully, but he was there and he got kicked out because, well, he's Han. He's just a do-it-your-own kind of guy. And like he said, I got kicked out for having a mind of my own, right? Isn't that what he says?
Yes.
I love that line. It's funny. But it's there. What did you guys think about this actor's, performance as Han? Did you guys like it?
I liked it. I was pleasantly surprised, especially the only videos that I had seen were non-spoiler videos. There was those two other guys. There's two guys that are internet famous for having done Harrison Ford parts. There was one where he did there was a young Indiana Jones guy, and then there was another that did a standalone Han Solo movie, independent movie. And so a lot of people were talking about, why didn't Disney just pick one of those two guys? They're great. They're amazing. They even have the mannerisms and the voice down. So I was, when I heard about Alden getting cast, I was like, man, it doesn't even look like him. But I think he pulled him off pretty well, because I was trying to think, all right, Han is, as we know him in the story, he has these mannerisms. Harrison Ford has these mannerisms. But, as you don't have the same mannerisms that you did 20 years ago. So I had to remove myself from his current mannerisms, Harrison Ford's, and say, well, what would he have been like 20 years ago? So, or whatever the time is. So whatever that is, I think they did, or whatever causes that, I think they did a good job. I think he did a good job on his own. I think he still sold me as Han Solo.
Yeah,
I think he's like really good.
Yeah, it's a good young Han. It's like a young Han that's still like full of charisma and energy. He's not really burned yet.
Yeah.
About life and trust and deals and business. Like old Han is just kind of like more laid back and chill, and he doesn't really jump the gun on some things, and he's not super excitable. He's more skeptical, and he's getting there in this movie. Like he's still like young buck, I guess.
Yeah. So isn't that all of us?
It's good.
I mean, we all grow up to where most of us get relaxed and we're chill, and we don't take things so seriously. And so this one was a lot more excitable. It would have been dumb to mimic what Han Solo is like now. It would
be too much, maybe. Yeah, that's a good point. Now, I was about to complain that he wasn't Han Solo-y enough, but you're right. But I'm looking at the episode 4, 5, and 6,
right,
and 7 and 8, but mostly 4, 5, 6. No. And it's true. Like there's time. There's a lot of time here. About 20 years or how much?
Something
how
like
much time?
Yeah, however old Leia and Luke are.
Well, actually, no, about 12 years, because this is, we'll get to this later, but this takes place 12 years before the Battle of Yavin.
Wow.
Yeah. It took a lot of investigation to find that year, but based on Chewie's age and when the Clone Wars happens, a bunch of stuff ties in. You can find an article about it that like goes through all these years and dates of stuff and how it pinpoints where this happened, but it's basically 12 ABY, or 12 BBY, before the Battle of Yavin. But anyway... nerding out there.
Yeah, I agree with what you guys were saying about. I think they would, even though he's supposed to be younger. I think it would have taken you out of the movie if he would have impersonated the current Harrison Ford. And I think the movie probably wouldn't have done that well, because we would all be criticizing, because we know what Harrison Ford looks like as a younger guy, and so be like, well, you did it good, but it wasn't like Harrison back in 1977 or. So
it would be like an uncanny valley kind of situation where we know what it should be and we're critiquing it against reality. Yeah. So how about qi'ra? I don't know how to say that name. I'm making it sound like an Egyptian name. Qi'ra? It's just qi'ra.
Qi'ra.
Who is also Daenerys. Am I saying that name right?
Daenerys.
I don't even watch Game of Thrones.
Daenerys Targaryen.
Dude, I've never watched the show, so I didn't make the connection when I was watching it. I was like, something is like familiar about her face, and then oh my god, it's her.
Yeah, that's actually she's actually one of the reasons that I was excited to watch it, because I know her performance in Game of Thrones. So see, I'm not that saved. I watched Game of Thrones. But she's fantastic actress. I mean, very stoic, very very serious, very beyond her years. So she was a little bit. She was significantly more kiddish in this movie. Not in a bad way, just like she acted her age, whereas in Game of Thrones she acts regal, and I thought it was really neat interpretation of the character. Yeah, really, really cool.
I liked her. Like she can just like hold a static look, and like you get like a feel from her face, just like that's how good of I mean, she's beautiful, so that probably helps. But she is a really good actress for her age, and I was really impressed. I like the character a lot, although I felt like her turn was a bit like almost off-putting, kind of took me out of it, because in like the second act where she's back from doing whatever she has done that's all horrible and awful, which I never tell you anything about, the way that she got to being in Voss's company and on that yacht and working for this corrupt guy, you don't know, but whatever happened, of course burned her, and she's seen things, but I feel like it was almost too much of a turn. Like it was almost like she didn't even love Han anymore. Like she was just like not interested in him almost. Yeah. And I don't know, what did you guys think? Was it too much or was it just right?
The question I have in that regard is, what threw me for a loop was thinking about it was how much time actually passed. How much time was he enlisted in the army, in the Empire Army, and how much time actually transpired? It felt like no time had transpired. Yeah. That's what threw me off. So when I was watching the movie, I had to inject at least 2 years in there somewhere.
At least. I was thinking at 5.
Yeah,
but
2. Okay, yeah. So I had to inject time in there because that was too quick of a turn. That was if I could fault it for anything, that was probably the biggest thing. It's like, wait a second, that was like last week. Why is she bad now?
Yeah, because you see the war scene where he's actually now he's a ground soldier.
Yeah,
and then he hooks up with the guys trying to break out of the con artists who are not really Empire soldiers, and there's like no hint of like time passing.
Yeah.
He could have said I was in the Empire Navy for 4 years, and boom, you would have had just a quick passing. Okay, time passed, but there isn't anything.
Well, from the time he stood there to get this. Solo, and then he was like, "I'm gonna be a pilot," and and he's like, "Well, what's your rush?" He's like, "Rush to get back here." He's like, "I've never heard someone say that." It did say 3 years later on the bottom in the war scene.
Oh, what? I don't remember that.
I missed that.
Okay,
there you go. 3 years.
I stand corrected. That's good. That's a good amount of time.
and whatever was going on in that war, they were kicking some major butt.
Yeah,
except for the guy that got fried by the blast.
Yeah,
boom.
Yeah, awesome. I totally missed that 3 year title too.
We didn't have any subtitles for Chewie, and we also didn't have any titles for planets. Like in Rogue One, there was like titles for every planet,
right?
And they went to different planets, but we didn't really know where they were, which is weird. I feel like there's always planet names in other movies.
I think the only subtitles I remember is I joked Jabba the Hutt's cousin
was Han.
Well, you remember the guy that showed up at the beginning, and I was like, Jabba the Hutt? And you laughed. The guy...
Oh, because his voice. Yeah, his voice sounded like Jabba's language.
At the bottom.
Yeah, and Han had subtitles when he was speaking Shrio Wookiee. What is it called, their language? When he was speaking Wookiee.
Yeah.
But then Chewie didn't have any. I was kind of hoping to know what he was saying. But maybe that's part of the gag of Chewie's. You don't really know what he's saying, but everyone else does. And somehow people take basic classes in Wookiee and R2 language and everything else in the universe as kids, because we don't know how they know these languages. That's just Star Wars. So when Han gets thrown down to the pit, I was like, oh, this is totally a Rancor. Like, this is going to be great. A little callback to Rancor that Luke fought. And maybe it's a baby Rancor, some smaller. But it was Chewie, and like totally threw me off. It totally caught me by surprise, and that was such a great surprise. And he was disgusting in all that mud. Can you imagine being in that suit? Like, that must have been a disgusting shot, like, to do.
Yeah, that threw me off too. It took me a little bit more, but I was like, is this Chewie? Is this about halfway into
the
that
silhouette?
Yeah, I was like, no way. That really was really cool.
Even when it showed like his hairy outline, I was like, oh, it's not a Rancor. Who is this?
Yeah, that's when they showed the outline. I was like, no. Yeah, that's when I thought it was.
I guess I'm too much of a Chewbacca fan because I was like, please be Chewie, please be Chewie, please be Chewie.
Really?
You were waiting for Chewie to come out.
I was like, please. Like he said, the beast. He's like, wait, there's a beast here. I'm like, well, who else would there be besides like a Rancor?
And that was cool. And he rescues him, which I was waiting to see like what story they would choose to do as far as this life debt thing. So again, in the Legends books, Chewie it's kind of like a cultural thing with Wookiees where there's this thing called a life debt, where if you save a Wookiee's life, like they owe you their life, and they'll use up their life to save yours because you saved theirs. Yeah. And it's a really honorable, not a religious, but almost like they'll just not break it. They'll do anything to honor this thing.
Yeah.
And in the books, Chewie has a life debt to Han, which then extends to Leia, which then also extends to their children. So he's like this really cool like bodyguard friend who just will give anything to save them. And how it all started was in the books. Of course, Han saves Chewie's life. I don't know how. I haven't read that book, but I know it happens. But in the movies, same thing. There's a life debt, an unsaid life debt, where Han actually saved Chewie's life at least 2 times in this movie.
Yeah,
on the train, he saves him from getting decapitated, and then also in the pit. So he owes Han his life, and that's why he's always sticking by his side, which is really cool. So I like that. The suit looked great. The mouth movements, were what they are.
Yeah, I wonder in this suit if they used a lot of like animatronics for his mouth instead of just opening and closing his mouth, because every time his lips would move.
Yeah, it was more natural than the original.
Yeah, it was. He did have a more articulated lips.
I wanted to see the behind the scenes footage of the actor practicing the Wookiee speak, because that was funny. Yeah,
there's an interview with the Chewbacca actor and Emilia Clarke, and they're talking about their experience on the set, and he starts going off into whatever that language is. What was it called?
Shiri Wook. Yeah, something like that. in the books, there's a funny character that's the ambassador for the Wookiees into the Senate, and he speaks English with a Wookiee growl. It's so funny. So the narrator who does a number of the Star Wars audiobooks, his name is Mark Thompson. He is worth going down a YouTube hole because this guy's incredible. He does all the voices. So anyway, in one of the books, there's this Wookiee ambassador who can speak English to other humanoids, and he has this funny growly Wookiee growl English. It's so crazy and funny how he does it. So I don't know, just got to throw that in there. It's worth a listen to. And that's in I think the second book of the Thrawn trilogy where he does that. It's so cool.
Sounds like I'm going to be checking him out.
You need to watch him, and yeah, he's really good. I mean, he does Lando, he does C-3PO, like everyone. I don't know how this guy does all the voices. He does Leia and Han, like spot on. It's really good.
What was his name?
Mark Thompson.
Mark Thompson.
He needs to be way more famous right now because of him. So next character I want to talk about real quick until we get into the rest of the meat of the movie is Lando. And, he was cool. Like visually, it was a decent match. I felt like his voice wasn't like full on Lando, but again, this is 12, 15 years before the Lando we're used to. So there's that. But the style and the flair was funny. All the capes, wasn't that great?
Yeah, that was awesome. That was a lot of
his
cape.
Cape collection. yeah, it was good. He's a fashionable guy. He knows the way around the closet. So I thought he did good. What do you guys think about Lando overall?
Well, seeing him from being a music artist to now an actor, it was kind of weird because he's on the side. He's from
Childish Gambino.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was like. What in the world? He's going to be Lando, and I was like, oh, this is going to be a nightmare. Like I'm going to say it. I was being a critic from a distance on this movie, and I was like, oh, it's not going to be good. And then when I heard him talk when he's gambling, I was like, okay. Yeah, he sounds a lot like Lambo's character, like the way he talks and the way he presents like words, and he says the word friend, and I was like, yeah, you sound just like him.
Han, the hand thing they threw in there, that was great.
I approached him the same way as I did with Han Solo, with the separation of time is like, okay, this is young Lando, so I can't compare him to 15, 20 years earlier. Just like I can't compare my mannerisms, how they were 15, 20 years to the way I am now. So I approached him the same way I did Han. I thought it was really cool. There was hints of what Lando would become, like you mentioned, Nate. There was some hints in there. Some of the way he said things, and as with anybody, they're going to evolve eventually. Eventually, he'll become the Lando that we know. And so I like Donald Glover. I actually knew Donald Glover, or knew of Donald Glover before he was a singer rapper. I'd seen him as a comedian. And things like that. So before he was famous for Childish Gambino, because that's my kids only know him as Childish Gambino, and they're like, hey, look, it's Childish Gambino on Spider-Man. I'm like, no, that's Donald Glover. What do you mean? And so I thought it was a great pick. I think the look, I'm looking at some pictures right now online. The look is really, really uncanny, actually.
Yeah, I have to hand it to that dude. He's doing a good job.
Yeah,
I did feel like in this movie he was almost only presented as a gambler. Like that's how he's rich and how he is. Just he gambles, but like in the bigger universe, he's like an entrepreneurial junkie. Like he's always making new enterprises and stuff.
But when he was at Cloud City, didn't he mention something about how he became who he was? I'm trying to think of the quote.
I'm sure. I mean, gambling is a big part of him, so that's no doubt. Like there's probably a reference to that, but
yeah.
But in the books, canon and not canon, he's always trying to find a new enterprise and make money. Like he's mining this, or he's buying this planet, or he's investing in some obscure material or something funny, like to make money quick and not quick and easy, but like creative and maybe half illegal. So yeah, I felt like there could have been a little bit more entrepreneurialism to him, but it was fine. It wasn't like lacking or anything. It just caught my eye.
It's probably in the back of his head. And he's like, I got to get money so I could become an entrepreneur.
I need to stop gambling and almost dying every time I lose.
Yeah.
So he is, he's a ladies' man, right? So this movie took me for a loop because he apparently is maybe in love with with a droid. You guys think like he's legitimately in love or just attached to or what?
I didn't at first. And at first I thought it was just a gimmick that L3 was talking. I said, it would never work or whatever. I know he loves me or whatever. I know how.
Yeah, that was funny.
But then, I don't know if we're there yet, but then at the end when what happened to L3 happened at the mines, I was like, whoa, he really does. He really does love this or this droid.
That was awesome.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting.
Ladies man, he's in love with a lady droid.
Yeah. I mean, funny. She is oozing femininity with all the feminism and thing that she was championing. So maybe he was attracted to all that estrogen.
Yeah, he likes a strong, independent woman who don't need no man.
Yeah.
In the movie, I couldn't help myself. I kept leaning over to Abby and Nate. I kept telling them funny stuff. I was like, "Oh, it's a fembot. It's a trigger bot."
The trigger bot was that got me. That was really funny. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's funny. She's like, "I'm gonna flip your switch off," and he pounds her, like he hits the guy's face. He's like, "Good luck finding it." I was like, "Dang."
TMI.
I was like, "Wow." And then
they take a lot of liberty with that character. It was funny.
Yeah. Well, she's like, "Do you need anything?" He's like, "Equal rights." I was like, "Oh my goodness."
Yeah. Burn. Was that when I said sick burn?
That was one of them.
That was great. There's a lot of good fun one-liners with her, and they didn't just stop at feminism stuff, which I don't have a problem with. It wasn't like all feminist stuff,
no.
But it was also like robot rights, which has never really been touched on in the Star Wars universe,
right?
Other than the what do they call them? The lock bolts they put on androids that are enslaved and captured. Like, this is a robot fighting for robot rights. This is a robot talking about the fact that they're a robot and that they're programmed or not programmed and. I don't know, that I've said in previous episodes that I think it's in the one where it's like things we hate about Star Wars is I mentioned that, in sci-fi as a whole, like this is a huge topic, AI, sentience, rights, and individuality of robots. But it really hasn't been touched on much in the Star Wars canon as far as the movies go. It's just, you just take it for what it is. Like, oh yeah, robots have free will. Robots are programmed and sometimes not programmed. But they just leave it there. And this movie finally touched on it. It was very relieving to me. Because, you have robots doing everything throughout the galaxy. There's got to be some uprisings or rebellions or evil droids or something. So this is cool. I liked it. And she's setting all the droids free in that workroom or that control room. That was so funny.
He's like, "I started a movement."
I didn't think that was going to happen. That was interesting. I could see
yeah.
Yeah, it was satisfying to a certain degree. I think it was... Oh, cool! I never seen this before.
It was comic relief too, like the little robot stomping on the control boards. That was so funny to me. It's like, how did he get up there? We don't know, but it was hilarious.
Spring legs.
I loved it. Finally setting free those poor stupid droids, letting them do whatever the heck they do.
Well, here's the one thing that I thought was cool. I was going to lean over to you and tell you about that. I'm like, but remember in New Hope when those guys come with a whole bunch of droids, like where did they collect them from? So what if at some point that this little uprising, freed droids all over the place, and so now droids are hard to come by, and this is why they're like on the black market, or they're selling them because they're just free floating in the world because they're free, or in the galaxy because they're.
They move around with the tides of economy and stuff, and political stuff. I'm sure.
Yeah. So,
but another thing that came to mind was speaking about androids and how sentient they are. Like the only other robot that I can think of that are like fully humanoid, other than C-3PO, which is pretty high functioning, is K-2SO from Rogue One, and this one L3 is like very human. I mean, they have humor, they've got comedic timing, they've got like free will and like they're thinking about themselves as a self. Like that's really high functioning for a robot. And I'm on my brain how it works is I started like building up like a fake canon. This is like maybe as we go back in time, there's more fully functional robots, and now around the time of episode 4, 5, and 6, and 7, and 8, there's less because of something economy or the Empire ruining stuff, or I don't know.
Yeah.
And so we're going back in time, back to Han's early days, and now we see like a way more advanced robot than we ever see in episode 4, 5, and 6, which of course was due to budget and stuff, I'm sure. But in universe, it just kind of makes you wonder, like, what could be a possibility as to why that happens. But that's me being overly Star Wars geeky.
I think it points like you're saying. I think it's budget, but I think it's a different way of telling the story. Whereas in 4, 5, and 6, they back then they concentrated on the main plot line, and so this is just my analysis of movie history. Is that's the way you shot a movie. You didn't have, if you had a subplot, it was 1 or 2. Now you have 15 subplots. 15 subplots in the story that vest you in the movie. It's a mechanism to get people vested in. Like we're talking about droid rights, We would have never talked about that. I mean, it might have been conversations within, geekdom or whatever, but we're talking about that now as a review. That's a really cool element to the story, and then we could branch off and talk about that kind of. And that's what they're doing now. Is they're inserting themes and things that they never would have in the past, because that wasn't the way you did movies. Now there's different lines that get the viewer vested more in the movie to keep them wanting to watch. For me with the whole uprising of the robots or the droids. To me, in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, that's how all this happened, and there's a whole nother spin-off that you could do in comic books or in a book or something like that could lead to just other avenues of storytelling. So and that's real life though too. In real life, there's not just there are for some people. It's just their life, and that's all that matters. But in real life, there's 100 different plot lines happening around you at any given time, and so
that's one thing I love about Star Wars as a whole, is because there are, even if you go back to the movies, you don't see stuff happening, but there are things happening all over the world, all over the universe or the galaxy. And they do all mostly converge, usually. And I just love that. I love this, how it's so deep and dense. Yeah. And you can just jump to another planet, and there could be an amazing, movie or 10 happening right there.
Yeah.
You don't never see it, but you might read about it later. I like that depth. And, you're kind of mentioning how movie trends have changed as far as how movie stories are written, multi-plots and, main plot and a subplot, back when you go back in time. But like now there's, Infinity War had like 7 things happening. It felt like, and it was okay. Like we're used to that because we're kind of ADHD these days, and it's just what we're used to. But movie trends have changed over time, and also sci-fi trends have go through phases, and some things are big for a while. Like time travel is a big deal, and then the next decade might be all about like organic robots, and the next one might be about extra dimensional stuff. We go through cycles, and maybe back in the 70s and 80s, robot rights wasn't a big deal at that moment, but I don't know. Just something that popped into my head.
Yeah.
So, good stuff. All right. Okay, so for this next section, let's talk about the story. What did you guys think about the overall story and style of this movie?
I think the whole origin, it was just well done. I don't look at it necessarily as an ultimate heist, more as a what turned Han into the Han that we know. And so I think it touched on a lot of different things. I'd say there's about 3 or 4 different time periods in the movie that helps us close the gap on how Han became Han. And so from an origin perspective, I thought that was really classy, really well done. I liked the way they told the heist story. I thought it was going to be something else. I thought it was going to be a drugs, because I thought the Kessel Run was a drug smuggling trade route, right? And
in the books, it is,
yeah. And so I kept looking like, what's in that bottle? Are those drugs? Is that like some DMT? What is it? What's in that bottle? And then no, it's a power source, or it's a whatever it is. So it turned into kind of like a diamond heist to me. A drug run would have been a completely different synopsis. It would have been completely different overtone, because now they're smuggling drugs, but it's Han, it's so they didn't go that route. So that threw me, but it was a good throw. And so I liked that aspect, that it wasn't your typical dealing drugs or,
that's a safer route, doing an energy source. Way safer.
So in my head, I guess I didn't mention at the beginning, but that's something a preconceived notion that I came in thinking that's what the Kessel Run was, but it turned out to be something completely different. And so,
in the books, the drug is called Glitterstim, and it's mined on Kessel, which Kessel is not a planet in the books. It's like a weird oblong asteroid that has somewhat of an atmosphere, and I think it's near the Jabba, or it's near the Hutt space, which means there's like a lot of pirating and merchant stuff going on, and there's a lot of slave labor. Like all the labor on this mining asteroid is slaves. And they live in horrible conditions underneath in the caverns of this huge asteroid, and you just mine the stuff for the rest of your life, or you die. And
so that's legend, right? That would be considered expanded universe. So it's similar to like how the Marvel side of Disney House, take elements from the comic books and just change them a little bit. Because I thought it was the Kessel Run was also it was a run for the Jabba Syndicate, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Or the Hutt Syndicate.
Yeah.
So that's So they changed that element, from legend into canon.
It kind of stinks. I was thinking about it. How do these authors view all this happening in front of them, and the authors that wrote these books? Like, these guys, have copywritten material under their name, and they got paid for the book. But because Disney is changing these little details, they don't have to pay them any kind of rights. It kind of stinks for them. Like, they came up with awesome ideas for the Star Wars universe, and they're probably not seeing a penny for it.
Yeah, we also don't see the contract either.
True.
That does suck, because it is a concept that they came up with. But then again, we don't know what they are. I agree with you. It could suck, but it could also be something that we don't know about that's lucrative on the back end for them. I think there's a lot of stuff in the fine print that the mainstream populace is not necessarily privy to. We say, oh, they're not getting any credit, but for all intents and purposes, they might be getting some sort of royalty on the back end, and
or they may have signed away anything they write becomes property.
Exactly, for the sake of being able to write within that universe.
Yeah. So, like, technically, someone could have straight up made like a Darth Bane movie, and the guy who wrote Darth Bane may not have any legal right in it or profit from it. I'm just hypothetically.
Yeah.
Like, that could be a deal. I'm sure that could be definitely a realistic deal of them signing stuff away. Whatever they write becomes property of Lucasfilm. A lot of businessy stuff goes on behind all this movie magic. It's very not exciting and kind of takes the fun out of it when you really.
It really does. It does.
The money stuff behind it, like, oh, that's why they made that decision. It wasn't because a good actor or because a cool thing. It's just because money.
Yeah.
Dang. So for this story, like, I expected it just to be kind of a typical heist story, like Ocean's 11 or whatever, where it's just like a majority of the story is just this action-packed, edge of your seat, against all odds, don't tell me the odds kind of like thing. But it was much more than a heist. I mean, obviously it was an origin story, but there was a heist. But like the third act, I felt like just really took it to a new level and made it more than just a heist or origin story. There was just really good story building, universe building happening. And, there was, of course, the betrayal on the end. And then the other twist of Darth Maul freaking being in this movie. That blew my mind.
I had no clue that was going to happen. Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah, that was really well done.
I love that about Rogue One, where it's like you see this ragtag of people trying to make some kind of military force, and that was really exciting and risky. There's a lot of stakes. I mean, it's like 50 to a few hundred people against like the Empire, and that's exciting. But you see even more like an earlier origin of the Rebel Alliance here.
Yeah. And truly ragtag.
Yeah. I mean, and it's also a cool twist, another twist, like third twist in the movie, is that you think like one of the villains is this masked, hired gun or whatever these raiders are. Not only does she turn out to be a woman, which is awesome, but also these are kind of the good guys. They're the rebels.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, whoa, did not see that coming.
Because you're rooting for him. You're rooting for Han and the whole little crew there at when they're trying to steal that first batch of what was that product called?
Coaxium.
When they were trying to steal that first batch of coaxium on that train, and you're like, oh man, these guys, kill them all, and then they turn out to be who they are.
Because good guys never have a chest piece or a scary mask, right?
Yeah,
but they do now.
Yeah, that was really, really well done. I'm pounding my fist here. That was done. That was done well.
So there was a crap load of action in this movie, and I loved it. So much fast-paced action, and honestly, a lot of it was CGI. But dude, it was some good CGI. Mm-hmm. Like, I felt like it was solid.
The one thing that I guess a slight negative would be I felt it was a little too packed. The action was well choreographed and everything, but some of the action scenes, it felt like they were crowding the screen. The actual the field of view that I had, it felt like it was just a tad bit too much going on. Maybe that had something to do with, we'll talk about a little bit about the grading here in a little bit, but it had a little bit to do with not being bright enough to be able to see everything that's going on. So I liked the choreography and I liked how the timing and everything fit, but a lot of times I felt like there was just it was too much happening on screen. Actually, that kind of threw me for a loop. It was just
like a Jason Bourne fight scene.
what's it called? The handheld cams and
zoom out. Jeez, what's going on here?
Exactly.
Where am I?
Yeah.
What kind of space am I in?
Yeah. So it did. I guess if the intent was to make me feel like I was there, it worked. Because it did. I was like, I was all frantic, sitting in my seat, sitting up, sitting
looking
back.
left and right.
Yeah, like, what's going on here? Okay, So
you do not want to sit in the front row in this movie.
Yeah,
warning.
At all. Actually, yeah, you're right. We probably could have afforded 5 more rows up, and that would have been perfectly fine.
Might have helped.
So I'll next time I go see that, I'll make sure that I do that.
Mm-hmm. Now, Nate, do you have any thoughts on the action or the?
I feel like there should have been more action, to be honest, because I wanted to see more of the Millennium Falcon flying around, but oh well.
Okay,
that was fun.
I wanted to see more of the battle at the beginning with Han, but they only peaked that for just a little bit. So
yeah,
it
was like a World War II
It was very somebody was doing some serious damage, and they only did maybe a minute, maybe 2 of interactive character building, and then all of a sudden they were out and they were done.
So you didn't see the actual battle? Yeah, what was that battle?
They never showed the good guys.
Yeah, no, it was just all bad guys. You saw the walkers, and you heard all the noises and explosions, and you saw bullets fly, or no, I shouldn't say bullets. The laser beam, whatever you want to call them, shooting back, and people exploding, hey, this way, and then blowing up, and so all that fun stuff.
Goodbye.
But I wish they would have shown maybe some of the rebels, but I'm glad they didn't. In some ways, I just wish there was more fighting like that.
That was they did a good nod to colonialism, where the guy's kill them all or whatever, and Han Solo talks up. What did he say? He's like,
when he was talking to the lieutenant, right?
Yeah, he's like, we're the aliens here basically, and isn't this their planet? And that was good. I was like, oh yes, colonialism at its finest, right there.
Yeah, so it wasn't the rebellion they were fighting. They were trying to take over an unagreeable planet, and they were trying to replace him with somebody that was loyal to the Empire.
Mm-hmm. So, and that's what the Empire does: is they take over planets through fear and control and violence, and then they stick a Star Destroyer or 2 over there, and the government and the military takes over the planet, and that's how they gain planets. But it's funny because the new alliance, or the new Republic, and also the alliance itself, they go and make peace, and they offer goods and protection and healthcare and stuff, and citizenship, and that's how they make friends and planets. This is totally different. So, like I said earlier, I did notice a few little things that kind of irked me about the plot and the story that sort of stood out as weird. And the first one, I got 3 of them. I hope you guys have some complaints too. The first one that struck me as weird was when Han talks to Beckett, and he's like, so we're still going to get paid, right? And he's like, yeah, we'll still get paid. And they have no fuel. Why are they going to go to this crime boss and say, oh, sorry, we lost the payload. Can we get paid? They're not going to get paid. Was that weird to you guys?
I thought he was.
Why would they get paid?
I thought he was referring to he had another job, like a backup that he was going to offer Voss. So I thought that's what I thought that's what he meant. He was like, "Hey, don't worry about it. I got this covered. There's something else that we could do. I'm going to present this to him." That wasn't actually the words he used, but he implied that this is what is what I'm going to present to him. We'll be all right. If he doesn't kill us, we'll be all right because I have this other thing that we could do for him.
We'll still get paid.
Yeah.
See, in my mind, I was still stuck in the moment of the gig that just went south, and Han's talking about getting paid. I'm like, yeah, you're not getting paid.
What? Not for
you're
that
an idiot.
One. Yeah.
You might get your head cut off. The second thing that stuck out was weird was Lando. He's like, I'll be in my quarters waiting for my portion of the pay, right? So he's in the Millennium Falcon when all the stuff goes south on the beach, and he up and leaves. I'm like, wait, he didn't get paid yet. Why is he where is he going? Is he going to come back to get paid? That was weird.
I don't know. I think that was just him being, shady.
Self-protection.
Yeah, survivalist.
Self.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Self-preservation.
The third thing that kind of disappointed me was that I thought that the dice that, the classic dice that are in the rear view mirror of the Millennium Falcon and also of that speeder he stole, I thought that the dice was what he used to win the game, to get the Millennium Falcon, but there aren't really dice in Sabacc. But it was just kind of weird. They didn't even play a role in the game at all. You don't even see the dice.
Is that something that I missed from the original trilogy?
Well, yeah. Well, in episode 8, the dice is a thing. And who is it? Luke gives the dice to Leia, and it's like that super emotional moment. And we all know that those are the dice from the Millennium Falcon. So that was one big point where they showed it, and I think they're in the original movies, of course. But in the books, I thought that it had kind of made it seem like those dice were actually used in the game that Han played to win the Falcon from Lando. I don't remember. Maybe I'm assuming. Dice. I'm thinking games, but maybe just not so much. So I kind of wish the dice had a bigger role, other than just being a little visual thing there. But it's neither here nor there. Did you guys anything stick out as kind of a plot hole or like a weird thing to you?
Up until now, the only thing that had stuck in my mind was the time that we mentioned earlier. Was the time differential between him escaping, joining the Empire army, and then meeting up with Qi'ra. So that was the only thing that really felt off to me. But Nate fixed that when
thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Plot holes. I can't think of anything that.
Qi'ra being on that yacht was a little unlikely. I felt like that was a big jump.
I could see that,
Like, we're in like different solar systems. 3 years have passed. She was basically imprisoned on Corellia, and now she's working for this high roller. It was just a big jump. I mean, I accepted it because that's just how Star Wars works. Is sometimes there's just crazy journeys that people take, and you get rolled up in something. But I was like, whoa, that was a convenient moment there.
Yeah, they need to make a qi'ra Star Wars story. Yeah.
There could be stuff there. I mean, we don't know. But it saves the story in that he doesn't actually have to go rescue her now. Now she's there.
Yes.
Lucky him.
So speaking of that part, she says, and so does Voss say, the things that she's had to do to get there. The things that she's had to do to get there. Mm-hmm. That implies a gravity of events that we are not privy to. But then
she worked her way up.
Yeah, but then and then Darth Maul shows up, so she's in cahoots with him, and he's already. And as you guys noted while we were watching the movie, he had the mechanical legs. So this is after he's fought with Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon Jinn. So I don't. When did that happen in that fight in this movie? Like, did it happen while Han was in enlisted? And so if so, then there's a whole lot of stuff that could be said about her working with Palpatine, her working with having met maybe Anakin himself at some point, maybe even with Padme. There's some stuff that she did behind the scenes to ruin that relation. There's just a whole bunch of stuff that could have happened. That was just it was one of those nods that tells you, man, she could have been involved in some really, really ugly stuff, which is why she's guilted into not loving or not letting Han love her.
So shuts him down.
That's 3 like he said earlier, Nate, the 3-year mark, like 3 to 5 years. A lot can happen in that time. Just the fact that she's in cahoots with Darth Maul, that tells you a whole lot right there. There could have been some really, really ugly stuff that we are not privy to that got her onto that yacht, and ultimately she was probably a spy for Darth Maul, spying on Voss himself. So there's a whole other element that we might see in a follow-up spin-off or in a follow-up movie to Solo.
Yeah, that's a good. At first, I was thinking, Voss is working for Darth Maul, but then I like your theory better, where she's actually really just working for Maul. Yeah, in case you're a little fuzzy on your Star Wars history, anyone out there, in Episode 1, Maul fights, at that time he's Darth Maul, he fights Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. He kills Qui-Gon, super sad, and then he gets cut in half by Obi-Wan, and he falls down a shaft into like a trash. He uses it's revealed in Clone Wars, the animated series, that he uses the Force to grab onto like a ventilation shaft, crawls up in there, and with his just the might of his evil will and his dark Force powers, he's able to live. And he basically crawls into a trash bin, which gets transported to a trash planet where there's like a bunch of like waste and it's like mechanical junk everywhere, and somehow he gets mechanical legs put onto his body, And I think there's like 6 mechanical like spider legs, really terrifying. And so he comes back, and he comes back with a vengeance in the Clone Wars animated series, and he's even a big role in Rebels with his brother Oberys, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So he's a huge character. I feel like the writers they realized that the fans loved Maul's appearance and just how terrifying and just fierce he was. He just didn't have any mercy. And of course, the double-sided lightsaber was awesome. So they brought him in as a major player.
Yeah. The only thing I thought was weird about seeing Darth Maul at the end is, originally I know that people age, I get that, but we're in 2018. I was thinking maybe they could have CGI'd him on a younger body and maybe not like so old. But that was my only.
He did look much older. Yeah. And this is only a few years after.
Yeah,
Clone
he had
Wars
a dad bod, I think.
Maybe he had a few little kids running around with horns on their head.
I don't know if he could have had kids if his lower half was.
Oh, snap!
unless it's a different type of species,
Uh-oh. Alien reproduction. Yeah, I don't see Maul settling down, with a white picket fence.
Right.
He just gets more and more crazy and intense.
For the casual fan, I would just like to point out that's not a precedent, because you look at Darth Vader himself was a completely artificial.
Yeah, he's a cyborg.
Yeah, and Grievous was. I mean, all he was a brain, lungs, and a digestive system. That's all he was, and everything else was mechanical. Yeah. So I just mentioned that because he cut in half in Episode 2. How's that going to happen? And I'm like, well, it happens all over the Star Wars universe. So.
Yeah, and also when you get cut by a lightsaber, it actually cauterizes, so you don't bleed out.
That's true.
So there's that. And he's an alien that's very resilient. So there's also that. And he's really strong in the Force. So there's lots of convenient things that allow him to survive. But mostly for an awesome plot twist in Clone Wars animated series. When he comes back, he's like, I'm going to kill Obi-Wan. And actually, in the future, I think in Rebels, old Obi-Wan on Tatooine kills Maul finally. Awesome. Yeah, so we know the beginning, the middle of Maul, and we know the end, but we don't know the in between where we are now with Solo, where we don't know what he's doing in new canon. Well, I mean, he has never been in like expanded universe. So he's pretty much strictly official canon. But what has he been up to? We don't know.
Why does he
He's seducing qi'ra is what he's doing.
Ooh,
to do his dirty work.
I like how the one thing for lightsabers, they couldn't help themselves. I think Daniel and I pointed out there were lightsabers on the back of the collection, but Star Wars couldn't help themselves. They had to have one Star Wars, like a laser. Oh my goodness!
They had to have it.
They had to have one sword. More thing turn on, and it had to be the sword.
Yeah,
but they couldn't help themselves, and it was Maul. But he had a new handle. I was like, ooh.
Yeah. Well, I think he lost his saber when he got defeated.
Didn't it get split? Yeah.
Yeah, it probably got destroyed or lost or split, so he's got a new one, and it looks pretty wicked.
What about Voss's weapon? Was Voss weapon Force enabled?
No,
that was just a laser thing, kind of like that gun from the Stormtroopers.
Mm-hmm. And like the weapons in the Imperial Guard of Snoke. Remember those red energy weapons? Yeah. They may be using similar to technology of lightsabers, which is not like a secret technology. It's like anyone can make these things.
Crystals or whatever?
Yeah, it could be using kyber crystals, just in a different way. All right, so let's talk about the bigger universe of Star Wars and how this movie really plays into it. So like I said, I found out that this movie takes place 12 years before the first Death Star is destroyed. So at this time, Luke and Leia are supposed to be 7, both of them, which sounds a little bit weird because if I remember reading right, Han is revealed to be at least 10 years older than both of them. So I don't know if 17 really fits, but we're somewhere in that range. And also, Jyn Erso should be 9 right now.
So that would be about when they killed the mom, Jyn Erso's mom.
Yeah, like 1 year after, from what I read. 1 year after the mom dying.
So then how old would Han be in the Solo movie?
Well, if he's 10 years older, he should be 17, but he's got to be at least 20.
Yeah, I was going to say, he looks more like he's in his early 20s than like a kid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so Chewie, what is he, 190?
190.
Yeah, and so he was 180 when the Clone Wars began. That's like one of the big clues. So because of that, and this is like 10 years after the Clone Wars beginning, it's able to say it's at 12 BBY, or before Battle of Yavin. Yeah.
I guess Han Solo characters are just always meant to look older than they actually are.
Yeah, you'll need to share that. Maybe if you could share that in the podcast notes or something like that. Like that link
on the Facebook page.
Yeah, there was a website that has all that stuff in there, right? The timeline.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was very detailed and very interesting. If you're into that kind of thing. So, what were some of you guys' favorite little cameos or Easter eggs in this movie?
Seeing the Indiana Jones little sculpt, the little statue that he steals, that was awesome. I was like, is that what I thought that was? And then I saw it yesterday, and I was like, look, there it is. It's the little idol that he steals. It looks like,
yeah, it definitely looks like it. I saw a closer image, and it looks a little different than what I remember.
Yeah.
It could still be a nod to it, but these are all Legends artifacts from what I looked up. But at the same time, I mean, there's a crystal freaking skull, basically, a human skull. But
as they're fighting, I think Daniel and I were talking during the movie. I was like, was that a saber? He's like, look at the lightsaber handles. I was like, ooh, so that was cool. I mean, they didn't use them, but I think in the collection, we saw some lightsaber handles. So
yeah.
Any
other Easter eggs?
I didn't catch any. That's why I have to see it 2 or 3 more times, I think.
I thought it was funny that the Millennium Falcon lost the antenna or the satellite.
Yeah,
those. Yeah, for the first time. Then there's a second. I was waiting for it. I didn't know if it would happen or not. And I kind of jokingly leaned over to Nate, and I was like, I wonder if they're going to lose the satellite, and they did.
I did like how in Episode 8, Luke gives Leia the dice, or whatever you want to call them, with the chain, the metal
die,
whatever. And I did like how that was basically in the beginning of the movie, as Han is running away, you could see them hanging in the window, and I was like, yes. But yeah, I also thought those were the same dice that he may have rolled, and I thought this before Daniel and I even talked. I thought, I was like, oh, maybe those are the dice he used to win the Millennium Falcon, but it turned out not even close.
Right.
Yeah, I was waiting for that payoff to happen.
Yeah, the whole sharing of the dice too, like when he gives them to qi'ra, and then qi'ra later gives it to him. Cool. That has its own story. If you watched one of the other popular shows on AMC, The Walking Dead, the Red Machete, there's a story. There's literally a whole webisode of 10 or 12 little episodes of how the machete got into Rick Grimes' hands. And my point being that it's kind of cool how the dice have traveled through pretty much every, well, with the exception of, I guess, of the prequels, but through the latest iteration of movies and the original. I thought that was pretty neat.
Yeah. It's fun to see a prop get a story. That's why I like lightsabers so much, because you just look at them, you're like, well, where has this thing been? You know, how many people has this killed or saved? There's just stories behind a physical prop, and good prop. I like that. That's cool.
Well, Woody Harrelson, when he was dressed up as a disguise as a bodyguard, he was wearing that certain type of helmet with the mask, and I think that's the same thing that Lando wore way back when they were dealing with Jabba the Hutt. So I thought that was
right.
Cool.
From the sand skiffs. Yeah, that was awesome. That's a classic little 70s look. I like it. Some of my favorite little Easter eggs were when they really just quickly offhandedly mentioned Aura Singh, and that Beckett killed him by pushing her.
Oh,
I was like, dude, Aura Singh is one of the biggest bad A's of the Star Wars universe, and she has killed Jedis. She's a awesome assassin. I mean, she's got a terrifying backstory that was written about in the comics, and she is actually in Episode 1 during the podcast race. She's up on a mountaintop with her sniper rifle, and she's watching the game. I don't know if she's going to assassinate someone, or if she just likes pod racing, or she's in between jobs, killing people. But she's killed, I think, multiple Jedi, and yeah, she's not a force to be trifled with. And he killed her by pushing her. I'm like, okay.
Well, he kind of said it as a nod, I pushed her. And he's like, well, thank you. It almost made it sound like there's more to the story, but we're going to stick with that one.
Yeah, it was sort of funny how they did it. I didn't not like it, but that was cool. They had her in there. Of course, the holocron, the Sith holocron was a big deal. That was in Voss's kind of trophy room is what I'm calling it. And there were some very shiny, detailed cylinders surrounding that triangle. And I'm thinking they're either lightsabers from ancient Sith days or they're scrolls. They could be some kind of cylinder scroll, container. But I mean, the way that they were shining and displayed, they look like ancient lightsabers. So I'm just going to stick with that. And there was the Mandalorian armor in the background, that big black suit. There's 2 of them, I think. So that's a classic. I think it's called a ground soldier or something like that.
Yeah.
There was the DL-44 blaster made its appearance, which was cool. and that's Han Solo's blaster that he's always had. And I always thought it was weird in, all the movies how this blaster is a short, it's a pistol, it's a laser pistol, but it's got a huge sight on it, like a scope. I'm thinking, well, that's weird. Like, are you going to put your eye up to it and look through the scope while you're shooting and knock your eye out? Or why is this like scope to an angle? It just doesn't fit. It looks great for a prop, but when you think about it, it's not practical. But it's revealed that this DL-44 blaster was actually like a full-on rifle. Because he takes it apart. Beckett takes off the nozzle or I don't know what it's called, the chamber, and takes it apart and shortens it, and that was cool. I like that. So that was a nice little. This is where this thing came from.
Mm-hmm. I did see like on Chewbacca, he had a different thing going on with like and I thought it was interesting seeing like all the shells for something that goes in a gun instead of like those square blocks, rectangle blocks. These are actual like loaded rounds.
Yeah, they go on the yacht and they have to check all their weapons, but he's got like what look like huge gauge like military shells on him, and they don't. It could be a grenade. I don't know.
Yeah,
they didn't even take his stuff. He likes his utility belts.
Yeah.
One of the coolest things that I learned from researching this trophy room and all these Easter eggs is that I think there's 4 different display tables in Voss's room, and each of them have a ton of stuff on them. But almost all of these things come from legend books, which really blew my mind. I thought they were just made up artifacts, like they might mention it in passing. It's a universe building, but they're never going to touch on it again. But these are actually not original things. Most of them are from legend books, like that skull, that glass skull, which I thought was kind of a nod to the crystal skull of Indiana Jones, which it still could be visually, but it's actually the crystal skull made out of a crystal that was like held as a treasure from some like classic Sith Lord or some like merchant or something, like way back in the day. Of course, the holocrons come from the ancient Sith days, like 4,000 years ago. All those, there's like a green statue of like a woman dancing, and that's like a goddess that some aliens worship. There's a bunch of heads, and there's like a hand of some old king, like a mummified hand. There's just a lot of stuff back there that are old, and almost all of them come from legend books, which again is really cool for me because that means that they are canonizing those things. So, when the split happened, when Disney said, oh yeah, all these books that have been written for the past 20, 30 years, they're actually nothing anymore, and we're not going to do anything with them. They're just going to drop them, and we're going to write our own movies. And that upset so many fans. Like, people overreacted, I think. But it's cool because now they're kind of not going back on that, but they're adopting ideas and little characters or props or story ideas, and they're bringing them into the new movies, which is cool.
I had to let a lot of that sink in.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
It's kind of a lot to handle.
Ooh, yeah, you're right.
Have you guys ever seen those visual guide to Star Wars books, like the encyclopedias?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen them.
Dude, I love them. I grew up with those. I had like 2 of them from, I think, episode 4 and episode 5. And then I had a book that was like a guide to droids, and it literally had like 200 droids from the Star Wars universe. And it was the coolest thing. I loved those things as a kid. Not only were they fun to look at because of the movie tie-ins, but because all this stuff that wasn't in the movies. Like, there was just all this stuff that was written about that was canonized at the time that you'll never see in the movies, and it was just exciting to me to like see, there's a bigger universe happening, there's a bigger story, and that inspired me in my sci-fi like stuff, that how I like to think of things and stuff that I like to write and think of.
That's actually the hardest. That's actually the hardest part of creating a movie. Those are called production Bibles, and whenever you're creating something at the size of Star Wars, or something smaller like Lord of the Rings, or a single trilogy of some sort. Those are like necessities. Those are necessities because that's what keeps continuity in all the movies, and that's what helps lessen the plot holes and lessen the.
It helps further things too. Like I remember, like when I was a kid, there is no canon about what was inside of a lightsaber except for what was in one of these books. There was a cutaway of Luke's lightsaber, and it showed the crystal. There was actually 2 crystals. It shows the power cells, the focusing, the circuits, like everything. That was like mind blowing to me. I'm like, oh my gosh, I never thought about what was inside of it. And now that's all I think about. When I see new technology, I'm like, what's inside that thing? How does it work? But that whole crystal mythos just really sprung to life after that, I think, was canonized. And I don't think the crystals are ever mentioned in the original trilogy, but they were after that point. They became a story point. And I love that. So that was cool. But there is, all that to say, there's a visual guide out for Solo, apparently. And I saw some pictures of it, and they're talking about this they're talking about this trophy room in Voss's yacht. And there's literally like very clear studio photos of each table. And they're a little different. For example, one of them has a red, looks like a samurai armor, but it's a Mandalorian armor set on this table. And around it are lightsabers. And one of them looks just like Luke's lightsaber. It's tripping me out. It was very strange. And there's another shot of the holocron table and the lightsabers, which I think our lightsabers are arranged differently. So it's like they were kind of set up differently than the movie scene was. But, I mean, this is official canon photos and text. And it says that this was like a reassembled Sith holocron. And that Voss was waiting to give it to someone, that would like suiting. And so maybe he was going to give it to Maul. Maybe he was going to give it as a fancy prize to someone to win him over. I don't know. But it's really cool how these books work because they're not very well known, but at the same time, they canonize a lot of stuff in these books that people may not ever touch on.
Are Voss and Darth Maul the same like race?
No.
Because
not at all.
I was just wondering because they have both similar striping, and I was just like, where is Voss from? That's one thing I don't know.
Really. At first, I thought he was a human with scars. I was like, "Ooh, this guy's been like scratched up by something nasty." But you sort of see his eyes like red when he's dying.
When he's dead, he's a weird.
He's white.
Yeah,
he's like pale. I'm like, "Ooh, this is like a humanoid alien. Pretty cool." He's very subtle.
Like when you get mad, those scars would get really dark.
Oh, really? I didn't notice that.
So when people get mad, their eyes get a little watery. But like when he get mad, like the scars, I'm just going to call them scars. There could be something different. Actually look like they would change color and get
there was
red.
a bandage on one of the scars at the top, too. So it looked,
I saw that. It was like an X. It was weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can tell this guy's been through something. He's got a history, which I love that about Star Wars. There's always a history. Yeah.
I mean, his introduction is he's killing somebody. So
you don't want to be his girlfriend, basically.
No.
So Darth Maul is a Dathomirian Zabrak. And that's his race. And there's actually Jedi that are Zabrakian or Zabraks, and they look really cool.
Interesting.
There you go.
I wonder how those two paths have crossed.
We may never know.
Or maybe they didn't, and it was, again, qi'ra. That was that's the only connection, and he didn't know about. He didn't know about.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah. Overall, the Paul Bettany was great. He did
he's a really good villain.
Yeah, really good villain. And well, I guess once he's turned gray or once he turned white, they can't come back to life, can they?
You never know. These aliens, they're crazy.
He goes into some cocoon phase or something.
It was kind of trippy because like when they're both having the duel with the knives and the blasters between Han, the distance that they would do. Well, for 10 years or less years, we heard him as Jarvis, and I was like, man, that's throwing me off here in that echo. I'm thinking of Jarvis now. That's just it was my, after so long of seeing all these MCU movies, I was just like, and then it just kind of took me out of the whole ending fight at first.
Yeah. You guys have any favorite alien designs or favorite maybe vehicles that are revealed in this movie?
I didn't think I was going to like that blue speeder at the beginning. But I thought it
grew on me.
Yeah, it grew on me too. You guys, Daniel knows, but I love Lego, and but I hate Star Wars Lego. I don't like them. They never look smooth. But I like Star Wars memorabilia, so like anything else that's just like a replica or something like that, I think those are cool. But the Lego always just threw me off and
doesn't quite do it for you.
Yeah, and so when I saw the speeder in Lego version, I was like, I don't know. But I saw the movie. Full circle. I saw a movie and I was like, oh, that's a really cool speeder. I'm going to go get the Lego version. I actually went to Walmart right after the thing. I'm like, how much is that thing?
Nice.
So, the speeder, that was my favorite. That was a really cool looking speeder. I loved the way it was reminiscent.
It's blocky. It's blocky and square, which is probably why the Lego one works so well.
Yeah.
The other one that worked is when Han and Chewie are running to the airstrip and like, hey, come back, like we're here, and the ship that was taking off that they were flying to
that was cool.
That was kind of interesting. They had like a whole deck underneath
shipping container.
Yeah, which is going to be good for Lego.
What do they call an AT freighter or AT carrier?
That's a great question. I don't remember.
I think I
thought
AT
it was
carrier.
a cool design that both pillars would stand up like a building, and then when it would leave, it looked like they would point forward and be a ship.
Yeah, it would rotate. Well, that's sort of similar to the Delta class ship that Vader uses, where the wings go upwards, the 3 wings, and then also Kylo Ren has one too, like a newer version of that black one, really tall. So that upward vertical thing is very Imperial, which is interesting, kind of like a power monolith thing, you know. Like whereas like the Republic and the good guys, they don't really have any ships like that. They all land and are very flat and subdued. It's kind of interesting.
I liked all the drifting all the vehicles are doing. Like all the
so much drifting.
Yeah, it's like Solo and the Furious, you know.
How did you like the shifting on the space?
Oh, yeah, the gear shift.
Yeah.
Like what did you just shift? Like a repulsor lift? I don't understand what's going on.
Yeah,
there's no gears.
Yeah, those. So yeah, I really like that vehicle. It was cool. It was welcomed. I like it.
It grew on me. I was like, this looks like a vintage. I feel like in Star Wars universe, this is vintage. You know, it's just old, but in a cool way. It's like an old Firebird or something.
Yeah, I'm more curious to see what Lando had because he was saying he had a whole bunch of them, and I was like, well,
yeah.
I was when I first saw it, I was like, oh, we're gonna be able to see all his ships. But then he's like, oh, well,
people, a used car salesman. That's
and I was like, man, like we're in an impound lot. Come on. And I mean, it was a cool reveal, like still, but I as a fan, I was like, yes, we're gonna be able to see like everything, and then impound lot. I was like, well. Another tip was as Han, he's like, I have a good feeling about that. I was like, what? Like that's totally opposite of what he normally says. Normally, I have a bad feeling about this.
Yeah, I thought that was clever. That was really cool.
He learned his lesson from almost getting sucked into a black hole. Now he doesn't have a good feeling about it anymore.
Yeah, I was quite confused seeing a big octopus in space, to be honest with you.
That was cool.
I was like, where'd you come from?
It looked like a giant crab.
Yeah.
Like the body was a crab so it was like a crabtopus. I don't know. What would that be?
A space crabtopus.
A space crabtopus, because it was like a giant horseshoe crab with tentacles. It was creepy looking. The speaking of aliens, the alien I liked that I wish wouldn't have died was Jon Favreau's character, Rio, the pilot with the 4 arms.
He was so cool, the comedic relief.
Yeah, at the beginning. I thought that was a really cool character. Actually, when I think there was a couple screenshots, and I thought it was Maz Kanata or something like that.
Me too.
That's what I thought it was.
I thought it was Maz Kanata. So this is funny. In one of our earlier episodes, I saw that shot in the trailer. I was like, oh, Maz Kanata is sitting in the pilot seat of the Millennium Falcon. Like, why is she flying the Falcon? Maybe they're bringing her in here, and that's how Han knows her from back in the day.
Exactly. That's what I thought too.
And it wasn't her, and it wasn't the Falcon.
Yeah.
Oops.
Maybe they're the same. I mean, he had 4 arms, but could they be the same species?
Nah, she didn't. She's different.
Yeah.
Completely different. Face looked the same.
What was the name of Lando's robot friend? I forget her name.
L3.
I like how they tied the part of how she became the ship.
Yeah. So that Orbi holographic display, is that actually part of the real ship in the background?
I would have to see the originals, but I think so.
Like they connected that screen and it was going to hang in there. They had it rigged up. Like I don't remember if that was actually part of the Falcon in the future, because that would be cool if it was.
It always calls the ship a her. So that's she's been faithful. She's brought us through a lot of stuff. All those feminine references that he makes towards the Millennium Falcon would be explained because there's a feminine artificial intelligence in the system itself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and Lando, in I think it's episode 5, he's got a cybernetic assistant who's got this like implant on his head. Remember that guy, the bald dude?
Yeah,
on Cloud City.
Mm-hmm.
He's got like Lobot. Yeah. Lobot is his name. There's actually an action figure for Lobot. It's pretty funny. And there's also an action figure for the guy with the ice cream machine. You guys know about that gag?
No, what?
The Star Wars intergalactic ice cream machine. So in the scene where Cloud City is being overtaken by the Empire or Vader or something's coming, they're all running, right? They're all like escaping and evacuating. Well, there's a dude running through the hallway that's carrying this big white cylinder, and it's literally an ice cream machine from the 70s.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
In universe, it's the memory core of the Alliance. It has all the secret locations, but it's an ice cream machine.
That's funny.
Yeah, and so you remember when we went to that convention? I think it was Alamo City Comic-Con, where the dudes were running around in the Rebel Alliance gear, and they had that white ice cream machine in their hands.
Oh, that makes so much sense now.
That's what it was. They were running around with this white thing.
And these guys are loony at the convention. I'm like, what in the world is going on here?
No, it was the funniest thing.
That's great.
Only like the level 4 Star Wars fans would have really gotten that joke, because it was pretty good. I loved it.
So they actually have that character. I was looking at it. They actually have that character as a toy. Yeah. His name is Wilro Hood.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So
it's good.
that's really good.
He saved. He's a real hero of the whole trilogy. With
Probably.
his ice cream database.
Makes
That's
you wonder
great.
what's in there. Was it ice cream or was it information? Or both?
Maybe both. Maybe they encoded the information into crystals of the ice cream.
Not only do you get 75 terabytes of space, but you get an ice cream machine.
Rebels ice cream.
Ben and Jerry's Rebel ice cream.
And Luke loves milk. All right, enough about alien milk. All right, well, thank you guys for joining us, especially you, Abby. Thank you for coming on the show with us. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, fantastic. It was great. Thanks for having me.
You're the perfect kind of guy to have as a guest here. We're going to have you back in the future for more movies and other things.
Yeah.
Cool.
Because we share a lot in common. Well, thank you guys for listening to this episode. Again, we would love it if you guys shared the post for this show from Facebook and anywhere else you can find on social media. We're also on YouTube and Instagram. Please go to iTunes and leave us a 5-star review if we are worthy of such. And a review would be awesome to just get some feedback from you guys. We love hearing emails and messages from all of you listeners out there to just know what you guys thought. I've been getting a few feedback messages from y'all on recent episodes. So thank you so much for that. And if you have any ideas or requests, we are open to listen to your ideas as well of future episodes. So write us and let us know what you're thinking. Thank you guys for listening. Y'all have a great week, and we'll see you next time.
I was presently supplied. Hold on.
Whoa.
That was weird. I'm going to say that.
We are presently supplied.
I'm presently supplied.
Presently
I'm so excited.
surprised.
So excited to be here.